Uh, would you read this on the phone right here? It's at the bottom. It's five. Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Loser lives here.
Loser lives here. What does the other one say?
Loser lives here. Let's say loser.
Yeah. Loser lives here. Yeah.
Lives here.
Loser lives here.
Loser.
Yeah, loser. It says loser lives here. Right.
Where's that from? Like,
No. That's on my door. That was on my door. And now I want to explain it to you because when I explain this is going to explain a whole serious concept. No. This is not childish. This is for my daughter. This is from Fatima, and Sakina speaks the same language, and it comes from their mother. So just today, this is wonderful because I want to explain the concept behind this. Most people would like to be a hero to their children, automatically. Most people would like to have love and respect and concern for their children. But there's different ways of looking at this. Number one, with my sons, the government had a policy, and when they were in their teens, they stayed with me in the Masjid, and it was excellent. Well, it wasn't excellent. They was more in Jahiliyyah in their teens, the whole life. They was more in Jahiliyyah than they was into Islam, and they liked Jahiliyyah because my older son he had enough age on him. He's almost 60 now. He's 50. What is this? He must be about 57, 58 now. So when he was young, he remembers all the big cars. He remember all of the importance, and the power and the people coming around and what it gave him. He loved it. He loved every bit of it. Now, when I left, they had those pictures left. Now, my younger son didn't technically remember that because he was 2.5, 3 years old. So he was about 3. So he didn't, while I was gone, he matured. And he remembered me through the pictures that we had, all them Jahiliyyah pictures. And this is the way they wanted me. Now, when I was away, I was doing all that, whatever I was doing. And my oldest son, my wife didn't bring my youngest son, but we had a big meeting, a national meeting down in Tijuana on the Mexican border. And I used to come up to the Mexican border from time to time, and I would bring a radio with a cassette, and I would turn on the radio, and I could pick up the Negro stations up there in L.A., somebody, and all that. And I would just record. I would run those. If I had an hour and a half, I wouldn't start it and stop it. I would just run the whole thing, all the talk, all the commercials, and I took them back down with me, and so I stayed up on the Negro type thing. But so my oldest son, he was aware of what was going on, and then when I had this big meeting, my wife didn't bring my younger son because then he would have a fresh memory of me. I'm not saying that's why she didn't bring him, but she brought my older son, and it was fine. We had a good time. But I had a national meeting. There was a lot of people there, and we were setting up the next stage to do what we was doing. And he remembers it very well. He said, yeah, I remember that was at the country club, and the racetrack was over there. You know, it was right next to the big racetrack. So we had it at an off time, plenty of rooms, plenty of everything. But you would drive into the parking lot of the racetrack from the hotel. It was a big spread. So my son, my oldest one, he remembers that very well. And so my youngest son didn't remember that too well. But when we got to rolling, when I came home as a full-fledged Muslim, after the third try, I'm ready to go, card-carrying Muslim, ready to roll. And so they was there when they heard my parole officer talking to my wife. I might have had them call and tell y'all that. They were saying, yeah, Dad, we was there. This is what they said, you know. So anyway, we went through a lot of good things together. But I want to get to the point on this about children. I made dua for my sons. I said, basically, I'm asking Allah to keep them alive long enough to get to know what's going on. Because as teenagers, they there with me and they getting sharp. Boy, look at here. They picking up on everything. They said, Dad, that brother act like a B-word personality. You probably know what he's saying. So yeah, it's true. And then, you know, they there with me and they go do, they still run around the streets during the day and they come and they stay there, but they're there a lot. We cook there, we live in the Masjid, you know. And they lived there in the Masjid when it was just a dump. I mean, you know, it was water coming in everywhere and we dug up all the floor and it was big rats come in out of the sewer. We had a pistol, we'd be blasting at them boy. I mean, we had them big rat traps, so when they would come in and that big rat trap, and they would be so big, they would be flopping around a little bit. And they lived through it. Then we fixed it up and we did on and on and on. So they was there from the very beginning all the time. And so the government could figure out that those guys are supporting him. You know, they keep him up on what's going on in the neighborhood because they out running all around. He's just going to Muslim stuff. And, you know, yeah, I saw so-and-so the other day, Dad. They said da-da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? I'm getting around very well, but you know how young people, they really get around. And they tried to put people on my youngest son. Once they brought, when my youngest son was 16, the people from down in L.A. at the big masjid down there, they brought a brother up there from New York that did all kind of breakdancing, a teenager. And my son looked at him and said, I don't need no friends. In other words, if they brought him to hang around with me, you know, for them, he can now keep track of where I'm going and who I'm around. Because to follow a teenager, 14, 15, boy, you got to be busy. Because they walking everywhere and they doing all this. They jumping over a fence. You got to have a police with them, you know. Because the police can't be able to, if they follow them, pretty soon they going to get up on it. Anyway, long story short, I asked Allah to keep them alive, you know, till they understand what's really going on. And Allah kept them alive. I wasn't thinking to ask, oh Allah, make them good Muslims and this, that, and other. course, Allah knows what's going on automatically, everything. But anyway, so the police, I don't know if I showed y'all at one time, just before a program, they would arrest them, because then I would be in the program full of people, but I would be technically by myself. And would nobody be aware, everybody else that was there, they would be on the opposite team. But anyway, so the police kept arresting them. And several years ago, I picked up on something. They would both have photo albums. And they say, yeah, Dad, everybody in their photo album, all these people are dead. All their friends was dead. Not was dead, they're all dead. Their friends are dead over 25 years ago. 20, 25 years, yeah, 20 years ago. I don't know none made it past that. Dead. I mean, just if I look at their old pictures, I see a kid with, I liked him, he had a long natural, he used to turn flips, where he could stand up straight and flip. I got a picture of him riding on the 6th grade picnic when they went over to Angel Island. I helped take him over there. He's right in the air doing a flip. And I said, well, what about so-and-so? Yeah, he long gone. So the police kept sending them to the penitentiary. And at first I was real mad at the police. Then I realized, wait a minute. When both of them were showing me their photo albums at different times, I said, hey, I asked Allah, keep them alive. All of their friends is dead. I mean, literally. Well, what about your homeboy? Y'all be up on the porch? I'm going to just change the subject. In one case, my son the oldest son, he down with several different little cliques. So they was up on the porch at their spot on 96th, and they were just hanging out, like young people do. I guess by that time he's in mid-20s, something like that. Could have been, mid-20s, could have been touching 30. You know how youngsters hang out a long time. Anyway, so one of his partners from my other crew came up and said, hey, man, I'm going to holler at you a minute. Da, 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 da. And he called him off the porch. When he called him off the porch, the rest of the guys sprayed the whole porch and knocked everybody on the porch, like they do around here, same stuff. And they was all his friends. The one that called him down had to be his friend to pull him down. And so that the other guys is not as close to my son. You better hurry up then, because, we can't, you know what I mean? They ready to spring. They getting ready to pop their masks down and do whatever they do. So he went up, he said, man, let me holler at you. So he walked at the porch. There was a house in the back, and you walk through the driveway, and they hang out on that porch. Shoot, they sprayed everybody on that porch and knocked them. And I mean, there's nothing he could do, because he's friends of both teams. That's his team, the other people is, for a guy to come up ready to make a move and pull him off the porch, he got to be his friend. Because he's going to see everything that go on. He's going to know who did it. It got to be his, and there's nothing he can do about it, though, because they are all of his friends. And he was telling me that, and I said, so what did you do? Did that give you a message? He just, no. I said, boy, look at here. I said, things is moving slow upstairs. If that happened to me, I said, that would have gave me a message, a big message, Anyway, the same thing with both of my sons. So one time when my son was here with me, do you remember when my oldest son was here? He'd stay at the Masjid. So anyway, we got to lifting iron. I don't know if you remember, that boy got swole. Now before he would get out of prison, he'd get with me and I'd drive with him and I stayed out in front. When we was staying over there, I don't know if you remember all that iron we had. I would stack most of it on. I would have 6 quarters and maybe a little money. And 6 quarters, that's 300 pounds in iron. And you know, the bar would be bending down. I'd be rack, rack. And so we got up there and he said, put another quarter on, Dad. That means he was just about doing at 4.